I've been trying to trace the origins of Islam. But it's a bigger mystery than I'd ever imagined. This is the Holy Book of Islam, and it's the earliest source for Islam that we have. Find out where the Quran was composed, and you find out where Muhammad was operating, and then you get a picture of where Islam might have begun. In the Quran, it tells Muhammad to follow the path trod by Abraham. Maybe that's the place to start looking. I'm in Hebron, which is a town on the West Bank, and I'm currently in a Jewish settlement. But Hebron is also very much a Palestinian city, and so the atmosphere is probably as tense as it is anywhere between Israelis and Palestinians. There are Israeli soldiers here with very large guns. And what they're guarding is this, the burial place of Abraham. Abraham, through the line of his son Isaac, was the father of the Jews. When everyone else was still pagan, Abraham worshipped the one true God. And for this, God rewarded him and his descendants with the promised land, part of which today goes by the name of Israel. This is the tomb of Abraham. And the reason that the soldiers are here is that these are not the only people who regard him as their ancestor. And they're not the only people who believe that God gave them the promised land. On the other side of the grill are Muslims, and they tell a different story. This is the Muslim side, and the reason they revere Abraham is because, as well as Isaac, he had another son, Ishmael, the father of the Arabs. This is the tomb of Abraham that we saw earlier from the Jewish side, but we're now looking at it from the Muslim side. The significance of Abraham and this association that was made between Arabs and Ishmaelites, the children of Ishmael, is actually much older than Islam itself. It remains central to Islam to this day. According to Muslims, Abraham is their prophet, and the religion he founded was not the religion of the Jews, but Islam. And in the Quran, we read that Ishmael helped Abraham to build a house of God at a place called Bakkah. Neither the Quran nor any contemporary source actually specifies where Bakkah was, but Muslims now would have absolutely no doubt that Bakkah is another name for a place deep in the Arabian deserts. Mecca. The holiest city in Islam, the birthplace of Muhammad. This is the largest mosque in the world. At its center, the Kaaba, the house of God, first built by Abraham and his son Ishmael, on foundations laid by the first man, Adam. It is older and holier than anywhere else in the world. It was in the hills above the city that Muhammad received the first of his revelations from God. These revelations would form the holy book of Islam, the Quran, the very word of God. Mecca is where Muslims believe everything began. The crossroads of faith and history. Surely here then, you would think, we could find solid evidence for Islam's beginnings. But there is a problem. Aside from a single ambiguous mention in the Quran itself, there is no mention of Mecca, not one, in any datable text for over 100 years after Muhammad's death. How can we know that Muhammad does come from Mecca?
We can't. But on the other hand, if he doesn't come from there, you have to come up with a plausible alternative for where he might have come from, and why would you want to take that on?
Why take it on? Well, you know, it's what historians do. If things don't fit, you try something else that might fit.
Here we go.
So this is it?
Yeah, here we are.
In the Quran, the faithful are instructed to pray in the direction of a holy sanctuary. But what it doesn't ever say is that this sanctuary stood at Mecca. And to some archaeologists, a few early mosques suggest something different.
We're talking about one of the earliest examples we have of a mosque.
And you date it 100 years after Muhammad?
Somewhere within 100 years or so. Because here, as we go into it, you can see...
This is it?
This is it, yeah.
This is the mosque?
This is the mosque. And what you can see here, we have an apse which is not facing Mecca. It's not facing the south. It's actually facing towards the east, towards the sun rising. This is an example of the time before the direction had actually been preferred towards Mecca.
So the implication of that is that at this early stage of Islam, the focus of prayer has not yet been absolutely fixed.
The direction of prayer had not been well established yet.
So it's a bit like the concrete hasn't yet set. It's that you can still play with it, you can still fiddle around with it, you can experiment with it.
Very much so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Not a decisive clue, perhaps. But it is suggestive that even though there are no Muslim sources, there are reports from Christian writers of the time that the Arab conquerors bowed their heads in prayer not in the direction of Mecca, but in a quite different direction, somewhere further north.